having me, Bill. So it's great to be presenting here at C&M. Great, just seeing all the folks here, seeing all of the, in particular it's been nice seeing a lot of the Devvio folks get together. It's been a fun couple of days, kind of leading everything, and this is kind of capping it off, so we've been excited to join BlockFiesta. And then hopefully people here get to see the BlockFiesta starting tomorrow as well, so that's a really neat kind of local thing we've got going on. So, as Bill said, I'm Tom Anderson. I'm Devvio's CEO. I'm also the founder of LitCraft, which is a sci-fi fantasy universe and metaverse that we're implementing in the blockchain space. Today, I'm going to go over blockchain gaming. And so, I think, in the blockchain space, video games is one of the biggest up-and-coming areas. It kind of exploded towards the end of last year with Axie Infinity just exploded, and there's been some other games. A lot of money then went into the blockchain gaming space, and we're going to be seeing a lot more happening. And it's also one of the categories in blockchain that I think has legs, that really is going to be growing and expanding quite a bit. I'm an experienced entrepreneur myself, and I've both run a blockchain company and a gaming company. So my first business was a video game company. I licensed about $100 million of video game development, published over 100 video game titles, sold it with hardware that we created. So I have good experience with the video game space. And then the past 6 years I've been growing Devvio, blockchain company. So I have kind of I think a unique perspective of blockchain and gaming. So I think video games, again, it's going to be one of the biggest areas in blockchain, but I also think blockchain is going to be fundamentally disruptive in the video game space as well. I think it's one of those categories in video games that is really going to become table stakes in the future. And I think a lot of what's been in video games so far has been play to earn. So that's what Axie Infinity is, and a lot of the other games coming out. And actually, 2-3 years ago, I was talking with Ray, and we were saying, wouldn't it be if somebody could play games and actually earn some extra money, or actually earn a living in a developing nation, things like that. So it's always been kind of part of the vision we've had on this side of our business. But part of the challenge, though, in the gaming space is kind of the contradiction between earning in a game and then playing and having fun. And I also think play to earn isn't the most important thing in video games. I think in blockchain games, I think it's actually owning the items. I think that's the reason that I think blockchain is going to be so disruptive to the entire video game industry. So if you play, for example, a AAA racing game for 6 months and you really earn this sweet car, and then you compare that to another game where you spent those same 6 months, you also earned a sweet car, and again, both AAA level games. But in the second game, you actually own the assets outside of the game's context, and you can go onto a marketplace and you can sell it. Nobody's going to play the old way; they're all going to play the new way. So that's where I think it's really again going to become table stakes, and it's going to really be the future of a big category in the entire video game industry. So another bit of perspective that I want to bring to blockchain gaming is kind of the history of where games have kind of evolved over the years. So early days, I remember buying a Myst CD, and that was kind of the first time that you could get a bigger game out on a computer, and then all the way to today, you could still just buy games. You could buy games on Steam, for example. You can buy games on Xbox Live or whatever. So just kind of buying games through different mediums. In kind of the early 2000s, I started playing EverQuest myself, and then I played a game called City Heroes. So these MMO type of monthly subscriptions became a big category. World of Warcraft really dominated that. 2007 or 8-ish, App Store started spinning up, and that started really opening up new business models as well. So there was, for the first time, you could release games for free and really build a business around it. So you could, have advertising models in games. And I remember it being pretty revolutionary, like getting free games on the App Store on iOS. Was pretty compelling. And free games have really evolved over the past few years as well. There's a lot of free games where you can buy, skins. Don't really affect the gameplay. And so there's a lot of games where their business model is to just try to get as many players in and then monetize through upgrades or sales, loot chests, A lot of games are play to win. So a game like Clash of Clans, you can spend a lot of money, and there's this it's like the old carrot on the end of the stick. You're always kind of going after it, and there's always more money to spend. And kind of financial-wise, you might have 100 customers, you might spend $6 customer acquisition cost. 92 of them, you lose money. You're actually spending money for customers on a free game. Maybe 5 or 6 of them you break even, and then there's a couple customers that spend a lot of money. So across that $600 spent on those 100 customers, it averages out, and you make $1,000. And then there's some real whales that spend a lot more money. So it's kind of interesting how games have evolved and the business models behind them. But whenever these new business models have come up, there's games that really drive into mainstream use and just massive new opportunities. And so play to earn and play to own really is a new category, and it's going to drive a level of change similar to these other kinds of category changes. New business models are rare when they do come out. They really do implement change in an industry as big as the video game industry. Okay, so just taking a look at then play to earn games. Like I said, it exploded last year. Axie Infinity had been around for a few years. They even developed their own sidechain called Ronin that sit on top of the Ethereum blockchain. They developed their own technology to have it be able to run faster. They had a big hack. As a lot of people probably know, they had a bridge to Ethereum, and they weren't really storing it in a proper way. But it was kind of an exciting bit of last year, seeing how games were starting to explode. And like huge amounts of money have gone into it. So 2.8 million players, 1.6 billion in total NFT sales, and it went from like 0 to 1.6 billion in a really short amount of time. After the crypto markets crashed, and the crypto markets are kind of doing what they do, right? They kind of go up and down. So things are less, but again, a lot of money went into games. So a lot of things are going to be coming up soon, and it's one of the categories again that is going to have legs longer term. So blockchain games suddenly became an exciting category. From my point of view, one thing that was interesting is we had a game that was a test bed that we had been using as a test bed just because it was used a lot of transactions, lots of different types of assets. And when the gaming space exploded, we had this ready to go games, probably the longest running game in the blockchain space, really, because it was a test bed, and we had it ready to go, and jumped in and started taking advantage of it. So that's why we've kind of gotten into this side of things ourselves, in addition to kind of my own experience in the space. The blockchain gaming space outside of things like Axie Infinity, which became kind of a dominant category in the crypto world, outside of the crypto world, and again, taking the bigger picture of video games more broadly, has not really gone well. Ubisoft had a big effort. I think most gamers really kind of think of it right now as just a way for publishers to just squeeze a little bit extra money out of you, right? I think NFTs and blockchain games just haven't been popular. But I think it's because we haven't kind of got to the point where people really understand what it really means. Again, play to own is going to become table stakes. And again, once you've played that way, you're never going to go back to the old way of playing. And you're not going to be able to not have assets owned outside of the context of the game when your competitors are doing it. So that's where things are going overall. And I don't think gamers have really kind of understood that. It is going to be for gamers, longer term. And then again, there's some real successes where a lot of money has come into games, and they're going to build some great stuff. I've spoken with the founder of Illuvium. It seems like a really great project. One thing I will say is I'm also kind of seeing some of the cycles that you see in the video game industry broadly. Like big movie studios, for example, jumped in and put tons of money into games. And games aren't easy. Like, it's not something you can just throw money at, really. And so there's going to be a lot of failed games as well in the blockchain gaming space. But in a space this big with this much money and this much kind of ongoing potential, the good ones will work their way up and rise up to the top. So kind of then, why are there challenges in the play to earn space? So it is generally an unproven space. As much money has come into it, it's kind of been,
driven by the greater fool theory, right? There's always somebody else that's gonna come in and spend more. And that's not a long-term sustainable, way to build a business. And it's created a lot of excitement. It's kind of the classic crypto thing, right? The crypto space is right? The latest thing, and people jump on it, and it does create wealth. And it's amazing how it's kind of bubbled up and grown up. So the game space has started in that same way. But the things that are going to make it successful longer term aren't proven yet. There's not been any real successes that have kind of shown long term how to build, blockchain games. Traditional gamers, like I said, are skeptical. Another big challenge is a lot of what's worked in this kind of initial phases of blockchain games have been games that aren't fun, right? A lot of people, say like, I play Axie Infinity because I have to, and then I play other games because I want to, right? There's also pitfalls as an industry that we all have to be careful of, and I hope really kind of don't come to fruition, where you end up with games that are work. So a lot of the design, that we've taken into account, accounts for that, makes it where it's not only fun, but something that isn't going to be, kind of abusive. So, with the challenges that it's not proven, the games haven't been, shown to be fun. Like, how can you really grow it in a way that is going to be successful? So I would say, for me, there's kind of 3 initial keys to success for kind of the initial growth in games. And this kind of ties back, this first one, the monetization strategy, ties back to those business models that I was describing before. This is the first time in history, and this is another way of looking at why this is going to be so big. This is the first time in history where the game monetization is primarily driven around the players rather than the publisher, right? Everything a publisher does in games before, a year ago, always has been, how can we make money on it, right? And some free games were more kind of artistic, but in general, gaming is a business. And all of those different various business models are ways publishers evolved and figured out how to make money. So play to earn games and play to own games, you have to take a different model. You have to make it where the players are the ones doing the monetization. So if you have a game like Candy Crush where you buy power-ups to get past the tough levels so you can keep playing, you have to have players be able to sell those power-ups rather than the publisher. And then there's ways that publishers can still make money by, like Axie Infinity made a lot of their money on their marketplace. And then there's initial kind of seeding NFTs and assets that you can put out, but it's a different way of thinking about it. Like it's really kind of contrary to the way the gaming industry works now. And that also is a good indication of why there's going to be new companies that will evolve. Anytime there's kind of disruptive models that the big companies aren't really comfortable with, that's when small companies come up and turn into big companies. So there's going to be a lot of opportunity then for some big companies to evolve in this space. A second thing that you need, and it kind of goes hand in hand, is you need robust architecture to support selling and buying these assets. If you create a first-person shooter, for example, it's nice to have a marketplace, but you don't have to have quite as robust of technology around it. The biggest games and the biggest ecosystems do, but this is a whole other level too, because you have blockchain-based assets, and we start getting into mainstream games and where games really are going to be. It's going to have to be high speed and cost effective, and doing that with with blockchain-based assets and NFTs is a very tough problem. And so that's also why you haven't seen somebody really kind of grow and just excel and dominate the spaces, because the technical side of things is really challenging, but it will happen. And this last bit is arguable, right? I think there's people that would say it doesn't really even need to be fun. But again, when you look at where blockchain games are going, it's games, right? And so I would argue that it's naive to think that games are not going to be fun, because at the end of the day, you're going to have again, people are choosing between game A and game B, and the game B that's more fun versus the game A is the one that's going to get more players, which is going to create more economy, which is going to create more ability for profit. So I don't buy myself that fun gameplay is optional. I would say it's critical. So those are some of the things I think that can kind of start growing things, and you can grow a successful blockchain gaming opportunity right now with those, still with kind of that greater fool theory. But I would say the single biggest thing that's really going to dominate the blockchain gaming space in the future is going to be having robust ecosystems. So when you start looking into metaverses and many different games, imagine if you have a AAA racing game and you can go into a crafting game, craft an engine and pull it over into it. And then you can take that sweet car that took 6 months to build, and a lot of building it was crafting things and then leveling up, and then take that car and drive it around in a metaverse and show off. And then you get tired of playing that game, and then you sell it on a marketplace, and then go into other games. And if you have many different games all tied into an ecosystem, those are the types of things that give you that kind of cumulative effect that, again, is going to let you dominate the space, right? So Facebook isn't dominant because they have great technology. They've got good technology, but they're dominant because they kind of hit that sweet spot in growth where they overtook MySpace, got enough users, and now they have that broad array of people that they leverage. So it's the same thing. You get a big ecosystem and you can leverage it into so many other things. So that really is the key. And the winners are going to have big, broad ecosystems that have assets that work across many different games. The other kind of big trend I see in blockchain gaming is AAA companies, AAA titles, AAA publishers, getting into the space. And it's not really feasible right now for AAA publishers to get into the space with where blockchain games have been up until now. And I, again, in my past business, we licensed 100 different games. It was $100 million of video game development. There's a lot of things you learn when you really start working with publishers. Like, you can't touch the developer cycles. Developer cycles for publishers are sacred, right? If you come to them with a proposal and you say, all your developers got to do is, and they'll totally tune you out. I'm not gonna ask my developers to do anything, right? So AAA games, you have to put things into terms that are going to work at their level of scale and their type of mentality. So you're going to need to have high speed and high throughput. You're going to have millions of users playing these big games in the future. It has to be cost effective. You can't spend $35 on an NFT transfer, on a Call of Duty game. That's never going to happen. There's a lot of pushback for energy efficiency and use in the environment. That's another of the big things that's kind of been a drag on blockchain games and big criticisms. So it's again going to become table stakes in the future. You're not going to be able to have these really kind of horrible technologies for our environment driving games. And then one of the other things is you have to make it easy for developers to interact with. You have to have an easy to use RESTful API, and that's really tough as well. If you're talking about high speed, high throughput blockchain, to be able to have an easy integration in with Web 2 technologies, you tie into the Unreal Engine or the Unity engine, that's a really tough problem, but you have to do it. Game publishers will not hire Solidity developers to integrate with their games. Big AAA publishers, again, it's never going to happen. So you have to have these requirements to really get to the big AAA level games. So then with kind of those constraints, what types of things do you need to do in order to then be successful? What are kind of the specific implementations that you would need to build? So we've been taking a lot of these philosophies and this high level kind of just strategic view of the space, and we've been implementing it into our game, LitCraft Experience. So LitCraft broadly is a sci-fi fantasy universe. LitCraft Experience, so the game Experience, is the first blockchain game, and that's the game that's been running for 3.5 years live on our blockchain already. So again, monetization is a key part, and it's again that different business model where you have to think of players. So we built the entire Experience game as monetization strategies around our players. We as a company do not compete with our players for sales. And you can almost think where you would maybe have players selling some stuff, and then you kind of take you sell some stuff and you're maybe selling alongside them, but no, you can't. It's a conflict of interest that the players would get it. You have to, and you have to tell them when you're playing, this is for you guys. You guys get in and you're gonna make your money and you're gonna be selling, in this case, lit pets, and we're not gonna compete with you on selling lit pets. So again, a completely different model and a really innovative model. It's fun, right? And then you have players that are now coming in and having, for the first time, fun, but feeling like they can actually make some money off of the game. I think another things, you have to have a broad range of gameplay. You're going to have gamers that want to play at night, on the phone before they go to bed, and then you're going to have gamers that are hardcore FPS, first-person shooter players, right? And you have gamers that want to grind, or gamers that really have skill. Like one of the games we have is a game like 2048, where you kind of slide things on the grid and combine it. And it's, in our game, 2048 is equivalent to like level 12. So there's gamers on our message boards and Telegram that say like, oh, I got a level 12, and I'm like, oh, I can't get it, would you sell it to me? Or I'll go to the marketplace to sell it. But then you can also get level 13 and level 14, and that's really hard. And what we're going to do is make it where level 14 lets you get things that you wouldn't otherwise be able to get, and only a few people really can kind of get to that skill level. So you create these niches where people who really are skilled at particular things can monetize what they're doing, and then they create items that that you sell that other people can use for their part of the game and their niche in it. So that's games where true experience is required. A lot of again, if you're overall feeling that a broad ecosystem is what's going to win overall, then you need to have a lot of depth in both the gameplay and the the NFTs themselves. So lit pets, for example, are kind of our main NFT that we sell. Every lit pet has a lot of different categories of how it can battle in a battling game, but they also have a lot of just characteristics. Charisma, intelligence, dexterity, wisdom, right? Like all the things we could probably have everybody in this room ranked against. And so you have a lot of depth that you can expand over time. And then we also have a lot of different items that you can sell. So there's a really robust food system, and we haven't even released it yet. But there's going to be millions and millions of potential like different types of food that you can create. And then the lit pets will need to have food. If you create a farm, you can get food ingredients. You're going to have supply chain kind of concepts where you have to move food over to somewhere else. If you have supply chain, then you're going to need equipment. If you have equipment, then you need to have materials, right? So then you have mining to get materials. You can craft those materials into more processed raw materials. You can craft those into components. The components can turn into equipment. And you can have people that create businesses in every little bit of that. Whether you have a restaurant, or you have pets that are battling, or you're a miner. Every bit of how it all goes together, all will interact. And again, that's a lot of kind of the robust ecosystem. And we've got thousands of different items that people can interact with in that kind of robust ecosystem. And then all of it ties into, again, that monetization strategy, that all those items that you get, you can sell in the marketplace. And then you also can buy things on the marketplace. And the game, is already starting to get, and it's going to get where it's too complex to do everything. Like most games, you can do everything. The way we're designing it is it's going to become too complex to do everything. You're not going to be able to do all the various pieces. You're not going to be able to, there's not enough time in the day. And so again, if you have a restaurant business, it'll kind of mirror real life. You'll have to buy your ingredients and run your restaurant. If on the other hand you're a farmer, you can create the ingredients and you focus on that, but you're not selling them as burgers, right? And another thing that's important is implementing proven game dynamics. So all of the things that we're describing, or that I'm describing on how we're implementing the game, are tied into how you have a mentality of building a play-to-earn game or a play-to-own game. But the gameplay itself, there's no need to reinvent the wheel. Like we've got match 3 games, merge games. We're coming out. We're going to be coming out with an FPS game, racing games, things like that. So there's a lot of this you don't want to reinvent the wheel. Like the game industry is robust. We know what people like to play, right? So you tie kind of proven concepts into those games. So the other thing that's kind of a interesting twist on blockchain games is because for the first time you're thinking of players as the ones that really kind of own the upside in the game and the monetization in it, then you also have this whole new situation where all the players are now the ones incentivized to grow it. And so we kind of realized that. We said, if that's the case, why don't we really start building, an ecosystem where everybody who's involved in the game, who because they're the ones that are monetizing it and they're the ones having fun for one, but also getting the upside of its growth. Why don't we have them help us grow everything? So we built this concept called Lit Legion. And the idea is that all of the people that are playing the game, we're going to organize them in Lit Legion. And I'm giving kind of a second talk this afternoon on Lit Legion. So it's kind of a blockchain-based social media platform. And let's have all the people that are involved in the game, let's organize it and work together, and let's all grow it together. It's such a cool concept because, it's like power to the players, right? It's taking a lot of the negatives that exist in the video game industry, and it's just a beautiful thing to think that you could have a game and an ecosystem and all this complexity that evolves where everybody shares in it and everybody grows it. It's kind of the epitome of a lot of what you want to do in the blockchain and crypto space. So again, these are kind of the things that will whether it's us or anyone else, these are the things that will fall out for any company that's successful in the blockchain gaming space. You also have to, again, have the infrastructure to make this particular type of game model or business work. And we've been doing an amazing job. And I can say we, and say it in that way because it's my team. And Jason's been running a lot of this. He's the kind of guy that you can build a company around, right? And then we are building a company around. So we've built our our buyer's marketplace. So it's glassblock.io. Everybody here right now can go to glassblock.io and check it out. It's really slick, works on mobile. It's scalable, to mainstream type of use. And so we have in it the ability to pay with a credit card. It's just as easy to use as PayPal, for example. You just sign in, get an account. You can pay with crypto as well, so you can pay with ETH or Bitcoin. But you can also pay with DevVio, which is really cool. So you can take assets on our blockchain and pay for other things. So the main asset in the LitCraft experience game, the main money in it is called Heptals. So you can buy LitCraft items on Glassblock with Heptals. And the technology is really cool. Like you can use that to build. We'll have all sorts of ESG, flow and assets that this technology will be used for as well. But just on the gaming side, being able to buy with tokens on the platform is good. Through an easy to use system that's just as easy to use as any credit card purchase that you make anywhere else. I jumped right into the buyer's marketplace, but also described DevX, right? I was describing, the things that are really tough to get into AAA level games: high speed, cost effective, high throughput, easy to integrate with. Those are really difficult challenges in the blockchain space, and we've solved that, with our DevX blockchain. And so for the first time, we really have something that can run at game level scale that also is easy to integrate with games. And then probably the thing that differentiates our blockchain more than anything else is our sharding solution. And we talked about it a little bit earlier today, but the sharding solution is basically parallelizing the processing of a blockchain. But the thing that's particularly compelling about it, when we really start doing implementations with business, is in kind of business application, is you can customize each shard for any given use case. So you can have a shard for the LitCraft experience, or you can have a single shard for any other game, and you can customize that shard and optimize it for any given particular game's needs or any given application's needs. And so like if you're just as a complete aside, if you're maintaining medical records and you have to have HIPAA compliant hardware, you can create shards that have HIPAA compliant hardware, right? So you can manage these shards for any kind of need that you have. And publishers will really like this because it gives them the control, AAA publishers especially, it gives them the control that they need to be able to get AAA games out. And there was kind of a famous moment where CryptoKitties was dominating the Ethereum network a few years back, right, 2018-ish, right? And all these other applications that were using Ethereum were kind of getting blown away because CryptoKitties were taking 60% of the network's use. By sharding, every game can scale as it needs, and you can add more shards for a particular game, and then another shards usage doesn't affect yours. And if something goes wrong, like there's a massive theft and you have to pull down a shard, for a game that doesn't affect all the other shards. So the technological blockchain component is, again, really tough, and that's going to be a huge competitive advantage kind of in growing and expanding. We've also got a seller's marketplace. So I'm excited to really kind of announce that. We're putting out the seller's marketplace. I think officially on Monday. We wanted to, after kind of all these activities were done, have folks ready to jump on customer support issues and things like that. But we're just putting out our seller's marketplace to go with our existing buyer's marketplace. And so what that is, the name I think is explanatory, but it's sellers can, if you have an asset and you want to list it on the Glassblock marketplace, you just list it for sale. Click a button, now it's on for sale. Somebody can come and buy it with crypto, credit card, DevPay. You buy something, it instantly goes into your wallet, which is amazing. It's really slick. And then you get USDC, which is Circle's stablecoin, and then you can put your USDC into your MetaMask or whatever kind of usual ways you want to get cash out. And USDC is a very kind of solid. It's actually my favorite stablecoin. And Circle's done an amazing job with it. So you get payouts with USDC. And then we're also building an exchange. And again, when you're building, I'll describe it kind of in the context of the gaming. If you're building a really robust ecosystem and you have many different assets that all can transfer, a lot of those appear to become commodities. And there will be digital commodities, but there'll be digital commodities in a very complex system. And so we're going to have an exchange where you can exchange different types of food items for heptals, or heptals for minerals that you mine or whatever. And then the exchange is also a real application beyond just kind of gaming stuff. So we're looking to have the exchange be really, I think, the world's first non-custodial, high-speed, high-throughput, and regulatory compliant, meaning it's tied in with KYC. Compared to other decentralized exchanges. So other decentralized exchanges, are non-custodial. Regular exchanges are custodial. So this is going to be a non-custodial exchange, but high speed and high throughput, which you don't typically get with decentralized exchanges. And it's also got, the KYC integration, and that's missing right now in the crypto space. So the exchange is going to be really exciting, just as a technology as well. Again, kind of going through the things that you have to do to make a game, blockchain game, successful. Again, I'm a big believer that it really does have to be fun. And so we started with kind of a baseline type of gameplay that's like Minecraft. And if any of you ever played Minecraft, the first time you're kind of playing, you're going through and digging stuff, and you get it. Like it is, it's just fun. It's a very simple concept, but it's fun to play and interact with. And when you start crafting things, you take all the different pieces and you craft them on a crafting table. That's fun, right? So it's a proven. We're not reinventing the wheel there. We're taking games like Candy Crush Saga or Merge level games. And again, things that are proven that we know people have fun with. We've got a really, I think, fun heptone battling game. So it's a battling game that you use the cards. So the lit pets come in the form of cards as NFTs. And it's been really neat seeing our community talk through the strategies of how to use the cards. And it seems like people are having a lot of fun. We have users that have played more than 500 hours when it was the beta, right? So that's pretty obvious that they weren't playing for the monetization of it because there was no monetization yet, right? It was all stuff that they knew was going to get thrown away, but they played a lot of time. And then we've got upcoming traditional standalone games. I think for this type of ecosystem, you have to have an FPS, you have to have RPGs, you have to have racing games. We've got kind of a cool space shooter concept coming up. So that whole ecosystem of these various things, and then you can craft things that you wear as your skin in an FPS. All the cross-play between the games, I think, is going to be really compelling. And so, expanding on kind of the financial ecosystem, there's other things you want to add in there, right? So we have upcoming a building system where you can build houses and stuff, and people spend a lot of time with that, and it's a particular place that ends up being kind of a sink for heptals, right? So if you want to build a gold door on your house just to kind of show off, or you want to buy NFTs and then hang them on your wall in your house, and this starts to transition into metaverse types of things. You can do those types of things. There's a lot of collectability in these. So we had our initial launch of what we call our Genesis lit pets. Some of them are really rare, like silver, gold, and diamond ones. And that's actually been another really fun thing with the community is somebody got a diamond, and it was a really good diamond. It was a good playing card as well. And it's like, wow, you can see that really being a valuable card. And it's one of the very first games that came out. Like that kind of combination, I think really creates a lot of collectability. And there's a lot of value in collectability in the NFT space, especially with NFTs that have utility. Another thing overall in the economy is we're starting out with a lot of it being simulated, right? And so when you're selling food items, sometimes you're selling into kind of a simulation of economy, but over time we're going to more and more tie those things into the exchange, where things become more and more just a full robust. Every transaction is a one-to-one transaction between two real people. And so I've been saying, the key is creating that broad ecosystem. It's not just kind of items, broad ecosystem of players across the world, geographies, effort, and value transfer. Ray mentioned this as well. I put it slightly differently. The internet was a disruptive platform that lets people transfer data. Blockchain is a disruptive platform that lets people transfer value. And if you look at that most basic level, that's where you see world-changing implications, right? And so using that's again another way to look at the big picture of this. That's why blockchain with gaming is so powerful, because it's the fundamental infrastructure that you transfer value. So I've got the LitCraft experience trailer that's the brand new. I think one more clip will turn it on. Yeah, so I was excited about how the trailer came out. So that just came. That's hot off the press. I saw it for the first time myself a few days ago. And so you can see some of the different types of gameplay, and then we've got another probably dozen of kind of smaller earning games that are tied in that are going to be coming out soon. The whole kind of 2.0 version of the ecosystem, where we're really kind of taking already a pretty robust ecosystem with thousands of items. And going to be creating many more different types of recipes and businesses that tie in. So it's neat how it's all kind of coming together. So that's just kind of a summary then of kind of not only how I think blockchain gaming is going to be a dominant category in the video game industry, but the things that you need to do to be successful and kind of where we're headed into it and things we've been doing already. So can open up for questions.
So many questions. Would it be possible for I'm just thinking of like in DigiDAO, what if there was a Native American artist who wanted to mint a digital character for your game? Is that something? How are those generated? Or do you just have an artist on staff? Like, where are those creatures coming from?
Yeah, so we have a couple of really good artists. We've got Mike and Phil, are both here. They've been doing an amazing job. One of the neat kind of upcoming art projects is our Lit Squad characters. Both Mike and Phil have been working on those, and there's going to be millions of combinations. So there's like 15 base characters. You can have all sorts of, like you can have like a superhero, lizard or superhero robot, or a fireman, kind of blobby guy. I guess a bunch of different things. And so all these different kind of clothing and thing, and then you're going to use the clothing and the characters to earn as well. So it's kind of like an RPG where you get, instead of getting like your suit of armor and your shield, you'll get like items that have more increasing value, but you use those to earn kind of on a daily basis. And there's going to be a bingo game that ties in with those as well. And so yeah, and then more broadly to your question, other types of artists that want to bring their art in, that's a big part of the point. We have the sellers marketplace coming up. We can do tie-ins between many different types of artistic just projects and bring them into our overall ecosystem. Because again, the whole point is to build this ever expanding, growing ecosystem. There's one, we're not quite at a point to announce it yet, but there's a big social media influencer that we've been talking to that's excited about what we're doing, thought the characters were really cute, and we can take a clothing line that she's been creating and make those NFTs and the characters and bring her audience into the game and show them something that's fun that they could again get into the game where it's kind of their game then, and they can grow and expand with us. So there's lots of things that you could do to bring in different groups into this big ecosystem. Oh yeah.
So I saw my brain's just rattled now, but there's a huge opportunity in the education space here, right? For actually providing education and opportunity for kids to get involved and learn about ecosystem, building an ecosystem, building an environment, right? What is your energy around that type of opportunity? And then second, it'd be fun to produce a commercial for this event with our students. So we got a couple of really good students that are good marketing. And I think you're talking about a gal that named her daughter Malibu Barbie. Is that right? Anyway, what are your thoughts in the education space? And have you are there any plans there?
Yeah, so the second point, we of course would love to work with CMM and do a commercial and things like that would be great. And so we've had a great relationship over the years, so that would be amazing. That's awesome. So Bill asked about having educational opportunities in the game. So one of the things that I'll describe in kind of my second talk is Lit Legion, and that has in particular a lot of mechanisms for education. But even in this game, one of the things that I would love to have, this is kind of a personal aspiration of what I'd like to see LitCraft Experience become, is like you can start a business in it. And right now it's pretty straightforward, starting a business. But it does have like a register button, and if any of you started a business, you got to register your business, right? You got to create a legal entity, and then you have cost of goods, and then you put those in, and then you sell and you get your revenue, and then your revenue less your cost of goods, generally your profit, right? And so I'd like to have that reported in GAAP financials, and I'd like the process of people kind of going through building a business and then start to add in things like intellectual property, and you have to work with lawyers and all the things that go into building a business, and then all the things you got to do in marketing. I think the businesses are going to be more and more complicated, and I love the concept that someday some kid's going to be like this brilliant entrepreneur, and then he's going to realize that all the stuff that he was learning in the game is real. Like I don't know how to read financial statements. I know how to register a business. It's like the things I did for registering the business. Oh, that's the same thing you do if you're creating a Delaware C corporation in this real similar way. So I like the kind of business entrepreneurial education side of the game, and then more broadly, with Legion I think can be more directly educational related. Where you mentioned it earlier. That's perfect use where you incentivize and reward students for helping other students, or reward people for creating real content, or reward people for creating news that's not fake news and have a trustworthy news source, things like that. So.
What was the name of that native token, Hectals?
Hectals, Heptals. Yeah.
I'm curious, are Hectals generated by gameplay or
Yes.
by experience, or is there like a bank that are awarded for gameplay?
Right now they're generated by gameplay.
So kind of proof of work.
Not really proof of work. It's kind of, I guess, right? Yeah, I guess in a sense, right? Not in the same sense you would use that term for Bitcoin, but yeah. And so proof of work is I guess a way to think of it, right? So yeah, people play the game right now, and depending on what you do, again, like you dig down through the mining stuff, get items, process them on the crafting table, sell them into the business, and then you get heptals. So right now, I would say we're in a phase of growth where again you're wanting to bring in more customers and more players, and people that are building stuff can sell to those players. But over time, you know, the overall design will be a system that has flow. And so whereas right now I would say we're seeding the market with Heppels and the economy, you know, if you fast forward in 3 years and this is successful the way we want it to be, we'll stop creating Heppels, and we'll only have it where you earn Heppels by interacting in a robust economy with other players, right? Just like the real world, right? Well, other than inflation. So. Yeah.
You were talking about setting up an ecosystem, which I really agree with because I've been down the road of playing different games.
Yeah.
And just messing around with them, and I got out of it because I didn't see the long-term effect.
Right. Yeah.
Like, if this game dies, how do I get my money?
Yep.
And so with what you brought up with your buyers and sellers, is there a way that you could just like make a certain file type mandatory on that, and then any game that's out there that sells on here, you can use it in your offering?
Yeah.
I think that could solve the whole problem right there.
Yeah, totally. So big opportunity. It's a great question. So, so the question was tied around, you know, not having ecosystem games and where that can be a turnoff. And I think you know that was some of the what's scary getting into gaming, like Axie Infinity, but especially the ones that aren't as established. If you don't see the things that are growing towards something that's long-term and successful, you know, it's like, well, do I really want to put my time on it? Because at some point, you're going to get the rug pulled out from under you, right? So having an ecosystem is critical. And the second part of the question was, you know, what types of, you know, kind of design around the tokens? You know, he described it as a file system, so that's a good way to think of it, right? So we have what we call our NFT 17s, right? So it's kind of like an ERC 721 on Ethereum. And it's a really, in our case, I think a really clever way to handle NFTs. So the NFTs 17s themselves are immutable. I mean, everything's immutable in the sense that it's on a blockchain, where the blockchain's immutable, but there's tokens that you can, you know, modify the tokens, and you'll have a full history of that on the immutable chain, but the tokens themselves are modifiable. But the NFTs have a portion of them that are immutable. So like if you craft a lit pet, you see how that was crafted at this moment in time, you know what it is, you know it's collectible, you know it's got these characteristics, you know you have proof of how you're going to be able to sell it in the future, it has this power and this release level, you know, that kind of thing. But then it also has tied into it an NFT 18, and the NFT 18 has items that they're intrinsically attached, you know, in the way we implement the NFT 17s, and you have things that you can change, like sales price, right, that kind of thing. And so we actually are using the NFT 17 specification for ESG assets, for plastics tokens that we're creating. And the marketplace was designed, so Jason actually is doing a talk on the marketplace later today, and he'll explain more of that. But the marketplace is designed that any type of categories of assets, you'll be able to go in and search for it, and then see, you know, different categories, and then any different kind of category that comes in, you'll be able to you know, optimize the search around it. You know, you can you know, limit. I only want to see items with these characteristics, you know, that kind of thing. How am I doing on time? Also, I don't have 5 minutes. Okay. So, question.
Yeah, so we know that like sports gambling is kind of like a big thing. Do you know of any companies that are trying to integrate like gambling with like current like, you know, the AAA APIs or anything? Is there anything like that going on?
Yeah, so there's a lot of blockchain types of projects built around gambling. So that's an area that I'm not touching with a 10-foot pole myself.
Right.
You know,
But in terms of like the APIs, like of like the big games, like are there any APIs that are easier to work with than others on the already like, you know, large games? Let's just say like StarCraft or something like that.
Yeah, so that's the big challenge with kind of mainstream kind of level gambling. Is the same thing that I was describing with games. You have those 4 challenges: high speed, high throughput, cost effectiveness, and ease of integration. And I would argue I like to think at least that we're the only company that's really solved that, you know, to a level that can grow to the scale that those real mass market applications are going to be. So our technology would be perfect for that, but like I said, we're not really touching that ourselves. So.
Lots of regulation.
Yeah. And that's a question.
My grandson has autism and he is drawn to video games.
Yeah.
Do you have do you currently have, or do you have any plans to develop video games specifically for people that have autism?
Yeah, so I actually had a children's book business, was kind of a smaller business that we had, and we had a book about Asperger's syndrome, and it was a kind of a book that you could go through, and it was a fun kind of interactive thing.
Right.
One thing that was nice for me in kind of building that book was you kind of learn some of what what somebody on the spectrum goes through, right? And you click through and you click on the clock, and the next page shows the clock ticking, right? And noises really, have more of an impact, especially loud noises, with people on the spectrum than otherwise. So I've had some experience kind of building interactive stories like that. One of the things that we're doing with Lit Legion is I'd like to have groups of people. So we've actually had good discussions where people that are in groups or parents of kids can get involved in it as well. And broadly, I would describe that as one of the big visions we have as well, is to have our community be very inclusive. So for people across the spectrum, I'd love to see our blockchain become a place where women can feel comfortable in blockchain and really see that become a dominant place. I'd like to see people of color feel comfortable in blockchain. In general, a big part of what we're doing overall is you kind of get the sense with what we're doing, kind of power to the players. That's the big vision overall of what we're doing at Devvio. We want people to be able to control their own value, the cereal box concept. We want people to be able to have the resource that they need to fulfill their potential, So it's a big part of what we're doing broadly. Yeah, I'm surprised I got choked up, but that's some of the passion longer term of what we're really doing with Devvio.
Yeah, and actually, it kind of, if anybody was wondering how the gaming kind of ties to the loftier goals and things we were talking about, or I'll call them loftier with ESG, this is actually the proving ground for all the back end, everything that we're talking about. You have the exchange, you have the marketplace. And Tom mentioned all of these, but not specifically necessarily in that context, because the back end for our systems are very similar. It's the front end that changes. So this system is almost twice the size, and you guys can correct me if I'm wrong, but if I'm not, don't let the facts get in the way of a good story, okay? But we are, have twice the size of Bitcoin blockchain. It's been around forever. Just because we're running at high speed with all these new capabilities and enabling these next generation of games, businesses, and business models, etc. And the other thing there that it's really amazing to me is, and Tom mentioned this in the context of education, so we can help kind of grab a hold of motivation. It's one thing games are great at, right? They motivate people who, I have cousins that will sit at the couch all day, but when it comes to games, they're tasked and work and guided and create a lot of value. And so being able to channel that into education or ESG alignment and all those things in that context is extremely powerful and can make a huge impact. And
one thing
that's
that
really exciting.
Yeah, thanks. One thing that was kind of neat is in 4 months of time running the blockchain, we got up to about 1.6 million blocks, which is about double Bitcoin's operations, and we're just barely starting to flex our system, right? So it's built for real scale. So one more question, or are we
I
good?
just had a mind-blowing thought based off of what he said. It literally just came to me about the work. It makes you work because you're in the game. You don't feel like you're working because you're in the game. So with the evolution of robots coming our way and everything, what if you was to make a video game where it's basically just you controlling a robot?
Yeah,
Good job.
I also like the idea of metaverse types of things where you can work in the metaverse and it's something that pays, but is a access to work and monetization and stuff. So yeah. All right, well good. Well,
Thank you so much, Tom.
Thank you.
technology, or is it just a matter of the utilization of the technology?
So I think the gameplay will be comparable eventually, because again, a lot of the game space is a proven space. Like over decades, people figured out what works and what's fun and what's exciting. When you start taking AAA level games that are those proven games that everybody loves playing, like Fortnite, right? Then and you want to then tie them into a blockchain. The blockchain interface is a really tough problem, and that's the part that we've been working to solve and have solved, and that's the part that others I think will struggle to solve. But I mean, there's gonna be other players in the space too. So that having a blockchain, that's those four requirements: high speed, high throughput, cost effective, and easy to integrate with. That's the thing you have to get on the blockchain side to work with those AAA games.
And those new complications, is that just because of all the different things that you're trying to do, or?
It's kind of innate in the challenges of an operationally distributed ledger, where you have many different nodes or computers all coming to consensus on a source of truth. That's innately difficult to do at high speed and high throughput and cost effectively. So, okay, good, thank you. All right, thank you, John.
One more.